So, check this out, people. Last week I made a video about how exhausting it is to live in the Philippines, right? With all the traffic, the pollution, the dogs, the cats, the roosters, and all that kind of stuff, right? Now, today I want to talk about another thing that is a culture shock. At least to me it was. And to a lot of people who are planning to come to the Philippines are going to experience for the very first time. And that is that here in the Philippines, people don't say excuse me when they bump into you. They don't say excuse me when they want to get ahead of you on a line. They don't say excuse me when you're on the bus or on the train or anywhere and they want to get through. They will simply walk past you, they will bump into you, they may push you over and continue to walk on by, right? Now, they're not being rude. They're not, at least not intentionally, right? Because this isn't something that some people do. This is something that the majority of Filipinos do and the majority of Asians do. Unlike in the US where people say excuse me when they want to get through somebody or by somebody, when they bump into someone. Here they don't say I'm sorry if they bump into you. They don't say I'm sorry if they step on you, if they accidentally hit you, right? They will simply keep it moving, right? And so you have to prepare yourself for these things when you come here. Because if you don't, you might start a fight with someone who is innocent and has no idea why you're starting a fight with them. Because different people, different countries, different cultures behave differently, right? As grown-ups, we should know these things. We can't assume that everyone has to cater to Americans and live in their country the way we live in ours. They shouldn't have to adapt to us in their country. We have to adapt to them in their country, right? And there's no question about that. It's those who are coming to another country should and must adapt to that country's ways. And so that took me a long time to get used to. I've been living here a year and I've been traveling back and forth before I moved here to the Philippines, right? And so another thing you're going to notice is that when you're online at a grocery store, the supermarket, the pharmacy, wherever, buying a ticket to get on the bus, the train, there will be a line and there will be people who will simply walk to the front. See what I said about the traffic in my last video? I'm on the 7th floor and the traffic is terrible. It's hard to get any rest in this country. So anyway, you're on a line and there will be people who will simply walk to the front of the line right past you and stand there expecting to be served while others are in line. And that's not something that as Americans we're used to, right? And you can't tell people, hey, listen, there are people here online, wait your turn. You can't do that here because to them that is normal. You have to adapt your ways to their ways and do the same, which is what I learned, right? But it's hard to go from having manners, being respectful, to doing the opposite of those things, right? So I stay in my place because this is not my country, right? I then realized that the people who are walking ahead of the line and jumping in front of those who are already at the counter waiting their turn are elderly or disabled. And the elderly and disabled in this country get priority over everybody. And so if you're online and an elderly woman comes by and steps in front of you, which she will, she's not going to say, excuse me. She's not going to say, I'm sorry. She's not going to say, hey, I'm elderly, I have priority. She's simply going to step in front of you and expect to be served. And you have to be quiet, hold your tongue, hold your place, and wait your turn. Because that's how they do it in this country. That took me a while to get used to. At the beginning, I didn't understand what was going on. I wanted to say, hey, excuse me, ma'am, excuse me, sir, but I'm next, I'm online. Please wait your turn. Thank God I never spoke out of turn, out of line, because if I had, then I feel stupid. I learned from the beginning to just keep quiet and stay in my lane, right? And so these are things that you have to get used to while you're here. Another thing you're going to notice, you're walking at the mall, you're walking at a grocery store, the supermarket, and you're getting ready to leave, or you're getting ready to go in, and someone ahead of you will go through, will push the door open or pull the door open and simply let it close in your face. They won't even attempt to hold the door open for you. That's not a common thing here. People don't do that. Nobody's going to hold the door open for you. Nobody. Doesn't matter how many bags you got in your hand. It's not that they're being rude. It's not that they're being disrespectful. These are things that are not common in some places. And this is one of those places. And just because you're trained and you're raised in a country where they expect you to be polite to others, in this country, they don't teach these things. Because as far as they're concerned, they're just minding their business. They're not being impolite. They're not being rude, right? And so these are common things in this country. Another thing, when you're on a bus or on the train, city bus or train, it doesn't matter what it is, private or otherwise, elderly, pregnant women, disabled people get priority all the time. They sit in the front. If you're sitting down, they will ask you to stand up. Someone will ask you to stand up, usually the conductor, and give your seat up to the elderly, disabled, or pregnant woman, which most people will do it without being asked, which is an oxymoron, right? Considering the things that I said about them not saying, excuse me, not saying I'm sorry if they bump into you, not holding the door open for you. But when a lady gets on a bus, a man knows to get up and give his seat up for her. That's one of the things you will notice here, right? And so these things aren't taught. They're not expected in this country. Another thing you will notice, which I find so uncomfortable, is that when I get on the bus, and I used to wear shorts when I first came here because it's so hot. The only country that I wear shorts was here in the Philippines. I don't even wear short pants back home in the US in the summertime, no matter how hot it is. I don't want anybody to see my duck legs, right? And so I used to wear shorts, but I stopped wearing shorts because you're dealing with people all day. You're constantly being bumped into people. People are being bumping into you. They're sitting next to you on the bus, on the train. They're leaning up against you. You're leaning up against them. It's so crowded here. It's gonna happen, right? And so when you get on the bus and you sit down and you have shorts and a lady sits next to you and she's wearing shorts or a short dress, short sleeves, and you're wearing short sleeves, your skin is going to touch hers. She's gonna touch your skin. It's not like in the US where people kind of, move away from you. It's not like that here. Asians are not afraid to be touched, at least not in public where I don't mean touch with your hands, but being close when they're in public, on public transportation, right? And so your skin is going to be up against hers. You're going to feel the warmth, you're going to feel the sweat, and she's going to be rubbing up against you with her arm casually on her cell phone, reading a book, listening to music. talking to friends, as if though nothing is going on, as if though no one is there, which I find very uncomfortable because I'm from New York, I'm from the US, and no one there on the train, on the subway, wants to be rubbing up against some stranger, right? And because that is one of the most uncomfortable things for me, because I'm wondering, wow, here I am sitting next to this beautiful girl, right? Or young lady or woman, whatever. And I can feel her skin on mine, right? And she can feel mine on her. She feels my warmth and my sweat on her. And she seems like everything is cool. I'm not even there. To me, that's really uncomfortable. It's not uncomfortable because a woman is touching me. It's uncomfortable because I'm this close to a woman and I don't know her, she doesn't know me. And so to me, that feels awkward. Like, what is she thinking? I hope she doesn't think that I'm sitting this close to her on purpose. But the fact is, she's sitting next to me that way because this is Asia. And they're used to these things. Even the helicopters fly low here and don't let you sleep. It's crazy. You don't get nothing, no peace in this country. But anyway, so one day I'm on the bus, right, and casually just chilling, holding on to the railing. It's the bus is packed. I'm trying to avoid touching someone, especially a woman. And here comes this young girl. She had on a uniform, a college uniform. And you know who go to school here because kids here wear uniforms. Students here wear uniforms. It doesn't matter if they're in preschool or in college, right? So I knew she was a college girl. I'm holding on to the railing, avoiding people as much as I can, which is impossible. It's just like being in New York during rush hour on the subway. It's gonna happen. But in New York, there's always a fight. Here, that's not gonna happen. So the girl comes in, she gets in, and she stands directly behind me. Others are piling into the bus. She's pushing up against me. She has on a backpack. And so everyone behind her is pushing her up against me. And I have my back turned to her. And I could feel her crotch right up against my butt. Right up against my butt. I can feel the curve of her crotch right up against the curves of my butt. You know how uncomfortable that was for me? Not because I mind, because obviously as a man, I would love to have women rubbing their crotches all over me all day, on the bus, on the train, anywhere, right? It's the fact that, to me, I can only imagine how this young girl was feeling, how uncomfortable she must have felt, right? And because I'm from the West, I'm from the US, these are not common things that we're used to. Here, they are. So I'm sure she may have felt uncomfortable, either for herself or for me, but it's just a way of life. She's got to get on the bus, she's got to get home. It doesn't matter what time she wants to get home. And so these are things that you're going to experience while you're here, whether you're a man or a woman. You're going to be pushing up against someone on the bus, on the train, and they're going to be pushing up against you. And hopefully, it's not a man pushing up against you, a woman, or you, a man, because I don't want no man pushing up against me, right? I mean, there was one time that I was sitting on the bus. This is another thing you're going to notice, that when you're sitting down and the bus gets full, you're going to have people leaning up against the back of your seat. They're going to lean up against you. And you're going to feel their butt cheek right on your shoulder. Which, bro, I don't care how used to these people are with those things. I'm not used to that, and I just don't like it, and I'm not going to have it. I'm sorry, but there's a line you got to draw. You got to have some class, bro. Turn around. Put your hip up against the chair, but don't put your butt cheek up against my shoulder, and you know it's there because you can feel it with your butt cheeks. It's not like you don't know you're leaning up against me, right? And so I poke the guy. I look up at him and I poke him and I'm like, can you back off a little bit? I mean, I know it's packed, but that's a little unnecessary, right? And most of the time, Filipinos won't say anything. The ones who are complaining, the ones who are saying anything are those who are not accustomed to these things. Americans, foreigners, Australians, you see a lot of Australians, you see a lot of Africans, you see people from all over the world visiting the Philippines, and it's usually the foreigners who are uncomfortable with these things, right? Who become annoyed. Rarely will you see a person becoming annoyed when someone doesn't hold the door open for them. I tell you, I'm like, at the beginning, I look around and I'm like, damn, people don't hold the door open for you here? And another thing I would say when someone would cut in front of me who was disabled, elderly, or pregnant, and I didn't understand, I'd say out loud, damn, the word excuse me doesn't exist here in Tagalog. No one says excuse me. Of course, I was new to the country and I didn't understand the ways, right? And so, little by little, you learn to back off and to shut up and just be quiet. This is not your country. You're visiting them. Adapt to their ways. Do it the way they do it, and you will fit in just fine. You may not like it when someone doesn't hold the door open for you. You may not like it if someone bumps you and doesn't say excuse me, if they step on you. You may not like it if they jump in front of the line, but that's part of the life here. And if you want to fit in, do the same. You might be on a line at McDonald's and you see people who are in a rush who think that life has to cater to them, and they'll just try to get in the front and just politely say, excuse me, I'm next, I'm online. I've had to do it a few times. But if the person is elderly, pregnant, or disabled, which sometimes it's hard to tell if someone is disabled or even elderly, because I tell you, Filipinos age so beautifully. You might see a 50-year-old woman who looks like she's in her 20s or early 30s. Same with a man, you know? See what I'm saying with the noise? In my last video, everything is loud here. Everything is noisy. Life starts at 5 a.m. In the Philippines, the karaoke, the Christmas caroling, and I'm not exaggerating, 5 a.m. They will wake you up with music, singing, and not with a good voice most of the time. And so these are things that are common here, and you as a foreigner have to adapt to their ways. Simply back off, be quiet if someone steps on you. Deal with it if they don't hold the door open for you. Deal with it if they jump in front of you in the line at McDonald's or anywhere else, and simply watch quietly and learn, observe, so that you can see how the people work and how the culture works, and then you will be just fine. I hold the door for everyone. If there are people behind me and I'm up front and I open the door, I hold the door open. Because that's what I'm used to, and that's how I do it. If I bump into someone, if I step on someone, I say, excuse me. I say, I'm sorry. That's what I'm used to. They're not used to that. So they might look at you surprised if you say, excuse me, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to bump you. I do it all the time. I say it all the time. I get the look like, it's okay. It's like, don't, it ain't no big deal kind of look, right? Another thing you're going to notice here in the Philippines, when you go to a restaurant, unlike in the US, you are required to tip most of the time, even if you get bad service. Here in the Philippines and in most Asian countries, you don't tip. You do not tip. I do it anyway. It's a habit, a bad one here, a good one. It's a bad habit regardless of where you go, because don't nobody want to pay extra money, especially for bad service, right? But here in the Philippines, you get good service no matter where you eat. And you don't get one waiter waiting on you. If you need something, you can call another waiter, you can call a busboy, you can call the manager. It doesn't matter. All you have to do is put your hand up or say, excuse me, ma'am, excuse me, sir, to any of the waiters walking by, and you will get service from any of them. No one is going to say, oh, your waiter will be right with you. And then when you're done, they say, thank you, have a good day, and they go about their business, not expecting anything in return. And when I get good service, I have to chase the waiter that served me, because they're not standing around the table looking at me hoping to get a tip. And so I have to find them, and I'll cup the money in my hand, and I'll offer to shake the hand, and then I'll leave them the money that way. Because when you do tip here, some places, if not most, expect those who are being tipped to share the tip with everyone else, and I don't agree with that, right? Or I'll simply hand them the money if they're at my table just before I leave. And most of the time they look at you surprised. They look at the money that you're handing to them, and they will kind of hesitate and look at you like, I don't understand kind of look. And sometimes you just have to say, listen, I appreciate the service you gave me. You were awesome. You were great. This is for you. It's just a tip. This is what we do in my country. When we get good service, we tip our waiters and waitresses, right? And so people here, when they do something for you, most of the time, they don't expect anything in return, right? Now, a lot of the times, 9 out of 10 times, you'll be in a taxi and a taxi driver will expect something from you. Most of the time, 9 out of 10 times, if the fee is 150 pesos and you give them 200 pesos, don't expect change. It's as if though they expect to keep all of the money that you give them on the cab drive, right? And a lot of the times they'll say, oh, I don't have change, just so that they can keep the extra. So there's some pros and there's some cons, and most of the cons come from cab drivers. You have to be careful that they don't overcharge you. Don't be afraid to tell a cab driver, excuse me, sir, can you please turn on the meter? Because when they notice that you're a foreigner, they will accept the ride. They will continue to drive to drop you off to your destination, and they will double or triple the fare. And because you have no idea, you're going to pay it. And it's going to take some time before you know what's fair and what's not, and who's trying to take advantage of you. I learned the hard way. I was taken advantage of plenty of times until I got to the point where I started saying, excuse me, sir, please turn on your meter. And if he refuses to turn on the meter and says, oh no, just give me 200 pesos, I would say, pull the cab over. I'm getting off. I'm getting on another taxi. I got into this big argument with a cab driver who refused to turn on his meter and at the same time refused to stop and let me off the taxi. So while I'm arguing with him saying, listen, stop the car, let me out. I'm not paying you no 200, no 300 pesos for a ride that I know is worth only 100. So let me off. I'm going to take another taxi. And he's casually driving as if though he doesn't hear nothing that I'm telling him. And it's not like there's a glass in front of me blocking where he can't hear me, right? And I'm saying, listen, stop the car because I'm not paying you. And if you do drop me off, I'm not paying you what you're asking for. I'm going to pay you what I know is fair. And you're going to take it or leave it. And can you believe the guy refused to drop me off and refused to turn on the meter and simply took me, basically kidnapped me and took me to my destination. And because I knew what the price was, I gave him what I knew was fair. And I didn't have change, so I gave him a large bill, and he looks at it. And then he tries to count out the money that he wanted to take. And I said, no, give me my change back. You're going to take this. And so sometimes, most of the time, you have to stand up to taxi drivers because they will take advantage of you if you don't. And when they see the American dollar, they assume that every American is rich. They just think that you got it like that you don't got bills to pay, that you got to eat. They just think, hey, he got money. And so you have to watch out for these things. So there are a lot of things that you're going to experience when you come here to the Philippines. I always recommend to someone, find someone, if you're a man, Find someone who's willing to represent you, to be the face of the person that you are. If you want to rent an apartment, if you want to buy something, I don't care how small it is, don't show your face. Have your girlfriend, have your guy, find them in advance. Tell them, listen, I'm flying to the Philippines. I'm looking for someone who can be my guy. I will take care of everything. I will make sure you eat, and I will pay you for your time. You give someone here $10 for the whole day, they're happy. And $10 is 500 pesos. They'll take you anywhere you want for the whole day, from 24 hours for 500 pesos, which is $10. But that's a lot of money here in this country. And so, and you will find anyone who's willing to take the job. Anyone. And if you're a man, I recommend a woman who's not married and who doesn't have a boyfriend. And I'm not talking about sex, but women are just so much easier to deal with here. Women are always ready, willing, and able to cater to a man, especially if he's a foreigner, especially if he's willing to pay her for her time. And I'm not talking about prostitution or sex. I'm talking about a legitimate, classy woman who's willing to give you her time and be the face to represent you so you're not being taken advantage of in the country. That's the very first thing I did, and that's why I'm able to survive while I'm here, is because I always have someone to be with me when I travel. Now, I travel by myself most of the time because I know where I'm going. I'll book a hotel in advance, but if I want to rent an apartment, if I want to rent a house, I'm not going to be the voice to talk, because as soon as they hear your accent, they're going to double and triple the rent. If you want to buy a watch, they're going to double and triple the price. So I always have the person who's with me, and I'll say to them, hey, do me a favor, can you ask them how much the watch is? And I just keep walking, or I stand to the side and let them talk and let them have it. But as soon as they see the American dollar, they're like, oh, double, triple, I'm getting paid today. So these are things that you have to think about when you come to the Philippines. Always have a guide. Let them be the face that represents you. Let them be the voice that represents you. That way, you're not being abused. You're not being taken advantage of, because a lot of these people, even though they are kind, they are probably the kindest people you will ever encounter in the world. I mean, I haven't traveled the world, but I can't see how much more polite and kind anyone else could be than a Filipino. And that's aside from the not having the manners to say excuse me and holding the door and saying please. And it's not that they're being rude, it's just part of the culture. It's not. You understand? And so aside from that, these people are amazing. But you have to understand that a lot of people who meet you or see you, they're not going to see you, they're going to see the dollar signs. And when they see the dollar sign, well, they're going to forget who you are. They're just going to see cha-ching. That might as well be your name. What's your name? Cha-ching. And so people are nice, people are polite, but people here are struggling. A lot of people struggle, a lot of people are poor. Men, don't be so easy to find yourself the first woman that looks cute to you online, on the internet. I always tell people before they come here to secure someone, especially a woman, don't date a poor woman. And when I say poor, I don't mean an average woman who works and who has bills to pay. I'm talking about a woman who may live in the province or in the city and is poor, all right, who can barely make it, who has 2 or 3 kids, who should never have had 2 or 3 kids because of how hard her life is. I told men, you have to avoid that kind of a woman, because it's not you they see. And she may take advantage of you. She may not. I'm not saying that she will. I've heard stories about women like that who are amazing and who end up getting married because they're truly kind. They truly appreciate the man that took them from their poverty. But I've heard some horror stories about women like that. I heard a story of a man in his 70s back home in the U.S. who it doesn't make sense to me how a man in his 70s expects an 18, 19, 20-year-old to find him attractive, and he thinks that she wants him for his looks and not the money. He doesn't have the common sense to know that. And he was sending money to this young lady here in the Philippines who was poor. And of course, she was nice to him, FaceTime on the phone. She was kind to him because he was sending her money. And then when it came time for him to show up, all the way up until the end, she said, yes, I'll pick you up at the airport. I'll be there. Everything was cool. They were talking for weeks, if not months. He finally, without even first coming here to visit, he apparently left everything, came to live here with this woman without first spending any time with her. And when he landed, she never showed up at the airport to pick him up. All the money he sent her to prepare the house, the apartment, the furniture, the rent, the bills, gone. She disappeared. She never showed up at the airport. When he called, he couldn't find her. He couldn't get through. He was blind. She played him all the way up until the end, all the way up until he got to Manila airport, and then he had a stroke. He suffered a stroke from the stress. Right there at the airport. If he died or not, I can't tell you, I don't know. But these are things that happen. And if you're not careful, I don't care how old you are, bro. You could be 19, 20 years old. When you come to a country that you've never experienced and you leave everything behind because you don't have the common sense to think, because you see these pretty girls giving you quality time because you can't get any back home. I don't care how old you are. You get to where you're going after you've left everything, and then when you try to reach that girl who you were supporting and sending money to, and she can't be found, you're going to suffer a stroke too, even at 19, 20 years old, because I would. I'd be so pissed that my heart would explode. And I'd be pissed mostly at myself for being an idiot and allowing somebody to play me at my age. And so you have to have common sense, man. Because you don't get no ass in the US, you don't get no attention. Women are giving you attention here. You have to have common sense to understand it's not you they like. It's not you they want. It's not you they're giving the attention to. It is your money. It is the American dollar. That's all they see. And so this is why I recommend that if you find a woman here, a woman that you want her to be your guide, and if things turn romantic, hey, more power to you. But keep it business. Lay it down from the beginning before you even get here. Say, listen, this is what I need. This is what I want. You help me, I'll help you. Lay it down. You start with love, and she starts with love, and you think that you're coming here for love, and you don't understand the facts that it's about money, then you're going to be taken advantage of, and you're going to be left for dead. And nobody's going to give a fuck. Nobody's going to care. Keep it business. That's what I did from the beginning. This is what I need. This is what I want. And if you help me, I will make sure you have everything you need for as long as I'm around. And if you're good to me, I'll be good to you. And if you want it to be romantic, fine. If not, fine. I'm okay with either one. That way she knows that you know that it's about the money. And if she wants to take that as a job, hey, more power to you. Do your job. I'll pay you for your time. And I'll see you when I see you. And then you can meet as many women as you want. So, these are other things that you're going to have to think about before you come to the Philippines. Check out my last video where I spoke about how exhausting it is to live here in the Philippines and how after a year it's not as exciting as it once was. I'm thinking about going to Thailand. Just check out the video and tell me what you think. I appreciate everybody watching. You can comment, you can give me a like or not. Thank you, people, for watching. I really appreciate it. Take care.